Everybody ready? Okay. This is in reference to the kidnapping investigation on Wednesday, February the 8th at approximately 4 p.m. Officer H.R. Bowers was flagged down while patrolling in the area of Steele Street, Durkeeville area. At that time, he was contacted by the victim's sister, who she had received a call from the victim's best friend telling her that she was being held against her will and to call the sister. So the victim, Tiandra Ward, called her best friend, who then contacted the sister, and then the sister flagged down a police officer. So that's, there's a little misconception of how that all occurred, so I wanted to clear that up. The sister went to the victim's apartment on Steele Court, found she wasn't at home. She then began calling her cell phone. She got some evasive responses, and it's about this time that she sees Bowers driving down the street. She flags him down. Bowers contacts the JSO supervisors. He makes some phone calls to the victim. He gets some evasive responses. We get a full JSO response. By now, it's about 5 p.m. The patrol supervisory team calls a homicide team out who follows up kidnapping cases. Sergeant Coursey and his team respond to Steele Court. When they get there, Sergeant Coursey begins to call her on the phone. She gives him evasive responses, telling him she won't return or she can't return. He finally tells her she either has to return or we're going to follow up with a full kidnapping response, and there'll be people out that put her face on the news. She tells him at that time she's on her way to Tampa. So this is at 5 o'clock. Using investigative techniques at the scene and today's technology, we're able to put her location at that time at somewhere in the area of Valdosta, Georgia. So they understand now she's not telling the truth. So at this point, we contact law enforcement in that area, give the victim description of her vehicle and her children, and that's dispatched to law enforcement in that area. At this time, keep in mind, we don't know the victim's name, we don't know his description. All we know is that she's being held against her will. She's giving that to her friend, and the friend and the sister both know that she's met someone online. They don't know who this person is, and they haven't really had much contact with her over the past 2 or 3 weeks. So that's where we're at. At this point, Sergeant Coursey contacts the U.S. Marshals. The U.S. Marshals are able to pinpoint the victim's location at this time at I-75 and Georgia 49 in a McDonald's parking lot. Captain Bill Lavender of the Byron Police Department, Trooper Harris of the Georgia State Patrol respond. They apprehend the suspect and rescue the family at that location. Nobody's hurt, everybody's secure, everybody does a good job. What we want to do at this time is assure the Durkeeville community that this was not a random act, that she met someone online, which is always a dangerous thing to do. She not only met them online, she arranged a meeting. He came to Jacksonville. We're not sure at this time how he got here, but from that point on, she is held somewhat against her will, and then she gets in her car and travels out of town. So we want to put that out to be cautious when giving information online or agreeing to meet people online. The suspect is currently in custody in Georgia, and the investigation is continuing. I think everybody's got his name, Luther Ogletree, a black male, 44. He's also known by the name of Rashim Abdul Bolton. And I would be remiss if I didn't put a shout out to the victim's sister, who was relentless, the victim's friend who reported it and did their job, and also the patrol officers were Officer Bowers, Officer Dyer, Sergeant Rogers, Sergeant Mitchell, Lieutenant Guy, the homicide team of Sergeant Coursey, Detective Childers, Detective Bodine, the Valdosta Police Department, who put out the original description that was given, the Byron Police Department with Captain Bill Lavender, and the Georgia State Patrol with Trooper Harris, and the United States Marshals that helped pinpoint the location. So, any questions? I know that was a mouthful.
Can you say how she was held against her will? What was all of that?
We haven't been able to talk or interview the suspect. He's still in Georgia, so we'll get to the bottom of that. We also have a time to talk to her today, so we'll get to the bottom of all those things. The investigation is still going on. I wanted to clear up the parts of how this all took place, how the police were contacted, what transpired after that, and to assure the community that this was not a random act. And I'm not saying that was reported, but I think that there were some people in the community that were concerned about that and whether they took that the wrong way. But I'm here to assure Durkeeville and Jacksonville that this was not a random act, and to also push that point home that if you're meeting people online and you're doing these things online, it's very dangerous. And we have a list of crimes that have occurred, anywhere from murder to sexual battery to robbery to theft of all kinds of items that occur online, for people meeting people online and hooking up with them, and it's a very dangerous thing to do.
Any truth to what I'm hearing, that he had warrants out of Fulton County?
Yes.
Can you tell us what those warrants were for?
We're still waiting for the full amount of it, because he's got these two names, so before we get all that cleared up and what's outstanding, he does have a violation of probation, and I believe he's also got some other charges pending on him, so he certainly got we got a warrant in the system here for kidnapping. So.
She lived there alone with her kids, nobody else. It would have come there during the 3 weeks and said, hey, what's up?
2 to 3 weeks. She's got 3 children, a 9-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And normally her and the sister are very close, but during this time period, they hadn't seen much of each other. They had talked on the phone, and what happened in this occasion, she was allowed, as long as he had the children, she was allowed to go out of his sight. So at that time, she chose to use the telephone to get to her friend, who got to the sister, that eventually led to her rescue.
What was his MO in this, as far as his use of force, threat?
Yes.
How did that occur? How did he actually go to the point where he abducted her?
Well, I think he first ingratiated himself to her by meeting her online, then coming to Jacksonville, and then I don't know what the threat is, and I'm not gonna. We'll get back to you when we get to exactly what the threat was used, whether it was the children or what it was. But I don't want to assume any of that and get y'all off on the wrong track. So we're here to kind of get this straightened up here and get you clear as we can get it, and to make sure the community is not in fear that we have people out there that are randomly abducting families. That's not the case. The case is it's an online meeting.
I just want to make sure I got this straight. So when they started out in Jacksonville and the call was made to, or the officer was flagged down, this person, she was already on her way to Valdosta, and can we assume that the evasive answers, she was forced to give those answers to the police, or that's the idea?
Yes.
You held a gunpoint, something like that. I have no idea.
We have not found a gun. There was no gun found, so I don't know.
Right, hypothetically, he was forcing her one way or another to get these answers. And,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not until she just, I think tries to get in very good, relentless police work. It would have been very easily to take that first phone call they make to the victim, and she says, I'm okay. I mean, she's a grown woman. I don't want to return home. I don't want to come home. For the police just to say, oh, we talked to her on the phone, she's okay. I mean, I don't know what the sister wasn't giving up. Those first officers that responded to the scene weren't giving up. Sergeant Coursey and his team weren't giving up. And then, of course, we go on up to Georgia. You guys, I mean, this touches a lot of hands, from Jacksonville to Valdosta to Macon to the Byron PD to the Georgia State Patrol. There's a great coordination, and I don't want to leave out the U.S. Marshals. They're always helpful to us, and we use them a lot. So
You did a good job of tracking this guy down. How did that, more specifically, how did that come about?
Well, I mean, it's today's technology. So, and to get any deeper in that, and I'd like to, as we go into these things, as we talk about them, the more you report, and the more we talk about how we do our job, the harder it is for us to do our job. So we want to be careful with those, details of how we go about doing it, because then it just gets tougher for us.
So the sister's, or the woman's best friend called the sister.
Yes,
and said that she was told that she was kidnapped?
She was being held against her will, I think was her quote. So the quote we get from the friend of the sister is, call my sister, I'm being held against my will, and, you know, I need her help. So she does that. She calls the sister. Sister goes to the apartment.
How was she able to make that phone call to the friend?
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, so, okay, so she called, so the sister called her sister, and then what did she tell her?
She's trying to get her to come home. She wants to know where she's at and gets evasive responses that
So she's being evasive with the sister as
Yes,
well?
yes.
So who, did she tell the friend?
Well, I
that
mean,
she
now
did?
we know at the end here, she's able to get away
Okay.
because he's got the children. So she goes in to pay a bill, and while she's inside, she uses the phone, but she's only able to use it for a certain amount of time. And then when she's back in the car, he's with her, and she can't give out the information. So she gives it off track to Tampa. There's one to Sergeant Corsi, I'm on my way to Tampa. She didn't tell him where she's at. She says, I don't know where I'm at. I'm in the car. I'm on my way to Tampa. I can't tell you where I'm at.
Is she back?
Yes.
Okay.
You believe she was forced to say that, where she was?
We don't know that.
You don't
We'll
know
know that when we know that's what she said because I mean, that's Sergeant Corsi talked to her on the phone, Officer Bowers talked to her on the phone, and her sister talked to her on the phone. So she was answering the phone.
We understand that he met this woman through a website called Model Mayhem. Does he have any affiliation with this website, or is it still too soon?
Yeah, it's too soon. And we will. We'll get back to you. We'll give you, and that way we can go from this point forward in the investigation and give you the details as to what the websites are, how they met, all that kind of stuff. We'll get that straightened out with you as we can. But I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we didn't have any illusion from anybody that, you know, we've got people out there randomly abducting families. That's just not true.
Do we have any indication whether he tried to do this to somebody else via using the web
I don't know
to
that.
kidnap her?
I know he has kidnapping charges that in his past. Is that true? That's true. So he does have kidnapping charges in his past.
Any other questions?
Can you say what that is, stemming from?
It's in Georgia. I think he's got a couple
Tennessee and
places.
Georgia.
Yeah, Tennessee and Georgia. So he's got charges in Georgia and Tennessee.
Both are
Nothing.
kidnapping.
We could find nothing in Jacksonville and nothing in Florida involving this guy under either name.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.